It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. The leaves had already turned, that particular shade of orange you only see in Lancaster County, and I was standing in the cereal aisle of a grocery store I had never been inside before in my life. Everything felt too bright, too loud. The fluorescent lights hummed above me like something mechanical and alive at the same time. I was wearing jeans for only the third time in my 22 years, and every time someone walked past me I had to remind myself that I looked normal, that I looked like everyone else. And then I saw her. She was at the end of the aisle. Her cap was perfectly pressed, her dress the same deep blue she had worn my entire childhood, her hands wrapped around the handle of a cart the way they had wrapped around everything my whole life, steady, purposeful, unhurried. My mother. 30 feet away from me in a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. My whole body stopped. Not just my feet, everything. My breath, my heartbeat. Some part of me I didn't even have a name for yet. She looked up, and she looked right through me. Not past me the way you look past a stranger. Not the way your eyes slide over someone you don't know. She looked at me. Her eyes met mine for one full second. And then she looked down at her cart, adjusted something inside it, and turned her wheels toward the next aisle. She walked away. I stood there holding a box of cereal I hadn't meant to pick up, and I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just stood there while the fluorescent lights hummed and a child somewhere behind me asked his mother for something, and I thought, so this is what it feels like. And this is what they meant when they said you would lose everything. I had been out of the Amish community for exactly 3 months. My name is Martha. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And this channel is where I finally say out loud the things my community taught me to keep silent. If you have ever loved people who made you choose between them and yourself, stay with me. Subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Because I have so many more truths waiting, and some of them will change the way you understand everything you thought you knew about belonging. Before I tell you what happened in that store, and what happened after, I need to explain something that most people outside the community don't fully understand, because when people hear the word shunning, now they imagine something dramatic, a formal ceremony maybe, a pronouncement, a door slammed in your face, something you could point to and say, that is the moment it happened, that is not how it works. Shunning in the Old Order Amish world, the Maidung as it is called, is not one moment. It is 1,000 moments. It is the absence of a phone call returned. It is a letter that arrives back in your mailbox, unopened, your own handwriting staring at you from the front of the envelope. It is a seat at a table where you used to sit that is now simply not offered. It is not a locked door. It is a door that is open, that you can see through, and you are simply no longer allowed to walk through it. The theology behind it comes from Scripture. From the instruction to avoid those who have departed from the faith, to protect the community from contamination of worldly influence. But the practice of it, the daily living of it, is something else entirely. It is social death administered slowly by the people who know exactly how to wound you most precisely, not because they are cruel. That is the part that took me the longest to understand. They do it because they believe, with their whole hearts, that it will bring you back, that the pain of the absence will outweigh the pain of whatever drove you away, that you will miss the table enough to come back and sit at it. What they do not account for is that some of us left because the table itself was the source of the wound. I was 22 when I left. I had been baptized at 17, which in my community was unremarkable, even encouraged. Baptism is the moment you formally covenant with the church, with the Ordnung, with the way of life that has been handed down through generations. It is also, though no one says this directly, the moment you sign away your right to leave without consequence, because once you are baptized, leaving is not just leaving. It is breaking a promise made before God, and the community treats it as such. My reasons for leaving are their own story, one I will tell in full another time. What matters for today is what leaving looked like in those first months, what it felt like to be 22 years old, wearing jeans in a fluorescent-lit grocery store, and understand for the first time in your life that you were entirely, completely, structurally alone. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Subscribe. And like this video, and turn on the notification bell. Every story I share is something my community would have wanted to stay buried, and I am not done talking. The first weeks after I left, I stayed with a woman I will call my bridge person. There are people who exist in the space between the Amish world and the English one, sometimes former Amish themselves, sometimes social workers, sometimes just quietly generous people who have made a practice of helping those who cross over. She was former Amish, left in her 30s, and she had a bedroom in her house with a lamp that ran on electricity and a window with no curtain, and she said, "Stay as long as you need." I did not know how to use a smartphone. I did not know how to open a bank account. I did not know what health insurance was, or how taxes worked, or why people put their food in containers and labeled them before they put them in the refrigerator. I was not stupid. I want to say that clearly. I had run a household since I was 14. I could manage a harvest and manage a budget and manage 6 younger siblings while my mother was in the barn. But the English world is not just a different place. It is a different language. And I was learning every word from scratch. What I was not prepared for was how much I would grieve, not the leaving. I had made peace with the leaving, or I had made enough peace with it to do it. What I grieved was the texture of the world I had come from, the way mornings had a shape, chores before dawn, the particular weight of a cast iron pan, the sound of the community gathering itself into motion around me. I had not left a bad life. I had left a life that was mine in every way, except the most important one. And the English world, for all its electric lights and its labeled containers and its extraordinary abundance, did not yet have any texture at all. I moved through it like I was moving through fog. My bridge person told me, "Give it a year." She said, "The fog lifts." She said, "One day you will be standing somewhere unremarkable, and you will realize the fog has been gone for weeks, and you did not even notice it leaving." I held on to that the way I used to hold on to scripture. But it was the thing I repeated to myself in the fluorescent lit stores that hummed too loud, and the parking lots that were too wide, and the television programs that moved too fast and assumed you already knew everyone in them. And then it was October, 3 months in, and I was in the cereal aisle, and I saw my mother. Here is what I have never been able to fully explain to people who did not grow up in a community like mine. My mother is not a cold woman. She is not a hard woman. She is someone who used to press her lips to the top of my head every single morning when I came into the kitchen, without ceremony, without announcement, the way you breathe. It was not a gesture. It was just what she did. It was as natural as the sunrise, and I never once thought to note it until it was gone. She is a woman who sat beside me through a fever that lasted 4 days when I was 9, and told me stories about her own childhood in a voice so quiet it was nearly singing. She is a woman who could read a room of 30 people and know within 2 minutes who was carrying something heavy that day, and she would find her way to that person before the meal was over. She loves with a completeness that I have not encountered in the same form anywhere in the English world, and I am not sure I ever will. And she walked past me in a grocery store like I was made of air, because the Maidong required it, because her bishop and her community and her understanding of faithfulness required it. Because she believes, and I have to say this with the complexity it deserves, she believes that not speaking to me is an act of love. That the pain she is causing me is a bridge she is building back to God on my behalf. That if she holds the line, if she does not soften, I will eventually feel the distance as unbearable, and I will return. She is not wrong that the distance is unbearable. She is wrong about what it makes me want to do. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell, because what I am about to tell you is the part nobody talks about. I left the store without buying anything. I sat in the parking lot in the second-hand car my bridge person had helped me purchase, a gray Honda that smelled faintly of someone else's life. And I sat there for a long time watching the doors open and close while people walked in and out carrying their ordinary Tuesday afternoons. And I thought about the version of this moment I had imagined before I left. Because I had imagined it. In the months before I made the decision, I had rehearsed every possible consequence. I had rehearsed the shunning in the abstract, the way you rehearse a surgery you know you need. I had told myself, it will hurt. It will hurt in ways you cannot fully anticipate, but you will survive it. And I had believed that. I still believe it even now. What I had not rehearsed was the specific quality of being looked through by someone who knows every version of you that has ever existed. My mother held me when I was hours old. She knows the sound I make when I am trying not to cry. She knows I am afraid of deep water and that I cannot sleep if there is a sound I cannot identify. She knows that when I was small, I used to hum to myself while I worked and that I stopped doing it at 14 because someone told me it was vain. She looked through all of that. That is not a stranger's look. A stranger's look carries nothing. What she gave me in that aisle was a look that was full of recognition, full of the full weight of who I was to her, and then carefully, deliberately, obediently emptied. I watched her empty it in real time. 1 second to fill, 1 second to drain. And then she turned her cart toward the next aisle. I have spent a long time understanding what it takes to do that. To see your child, because I am still her child, that does not change. And to override every instinct that 22 years of mothering has built into your body. It is not nothing. It is not easy. I want to be clear about that because I think it would be easier in some ways to believe that it was. What happened in that aisle cost her something. I believe that. I have to believe it. What I also know is that the system she lives inside made her pay that cost. Made her believe the payment was holy. Told her that her own grief at walking past her daughter was faithfulness. That the lurch in her stomach when our eyes met was the feeling of doing the right thing. My therapist said something once that I keep coming back to. She said, some systems survive by teaching people to call their wounds obedience. When the thing that hurts you is renamed faithfulness, you stop trying to heal it. You start protecting it. My mother is not my enemy. The system that told her emptying her eyes was love, that is something I am still finding words for. After the parking lot, I drove back to my bridge person's house and I sat at her kitchen table, and she made tea without asking if I wanted any, which is one of the things I love about her, and I told her what happened. I told her about the cereal aisle and the cart and the 1 full second, and she listened the way she always listened. Completely, without rushing me toward a conclusion. When I finished, she said, "Did she look well?" And I laughed. I actually laughed. Because it was such a completely unexpected question, and also because it was exactly the right one. And I thought about it. Really thought about it. The pressed cap, the steady hands on the cart. The way she had moved, deliberate and unhurried, through the aisles of a world that was entirely hers. She looked well, I said. She looked like herself, and there was grief in that. Real grief. But there was also something else underneath it that I am still learning to name, something that was almost, not quite, but almost, relief. Because she was intact. Because the world I had left had not collapsed without me. Because the woman who had pressed her lips to the top of my head every morning for 18 years was still moving through the world with the same steady hands. I was the one who had changed. I was the one standing in a parking lot that was too wide, in jeans that still felt foreign, next to a gray Honda that smelled like someone else's life, trying to locate myself inside a world that had not yet taken my shape. But I was also, for the first time, the one who had chosen. That is the thing nobody tells you about leaving a community where every decision has been made for you since birth. And the leaving is devastating. The shunning is devastating. The grocery store aisle and the empty eyes and the turned cart, all of it is devastating. And also, underneath all of it, buried under the grief like something growing in the dark, you made a choice. They could not take that back. The Meidung could take my mother's gaze and my father's table and my sister's voices on the phone. It could not take the fact that I had, for the first time in my life, decided something for myself. I am not telling you the grief was worth it. I do not think grief works that way. I am telling you both things were true at the same time. It has been 2 years now since that October Tuesday. I have stood in that grocery store many times since. The fluorescent lights still hum. I still notice it. But I no longer feel like I am moving through fog. My bridge person was right about that. The fog lifted without announcing itself. I have not spoken to my mother. She has not spoken to me. There are letters I have written that I have not sent. There are things I keep meaning to say out loud to the version of her that lives in my memory, the one who pressed her lips to the top of my head, the one who sat beside me through a fever and made her voice almost like singing. One day I might find a way to say them. What I know is this. The Amish world gave me a mother who loved me with everything she had. It also gave her a set of instructions for what to do with that love when I stopped fitting the shape it required. And she followed those instructions with the same steadiness she brought to everything. I cannot hate her for that. I have tried, in the dark moments, to find something that feels like hate, and I cannot reach it. What I have instead is this: my own hands on my own steering wheel, a gray Honda that no longer smells like someone else's life, jeans that finally feel like mine, and a Tuesday afternoon in October that I carry everywhere I go, not as a wound exactly, more like a scar that tells you where you came from, a scar that tells you what you survived in order to be standing exactly here. If you grew up in a world where love came with conditions you did not choose, I see you. If someone who should have recognized you looked through you instead, I see you. Your grief is real. Your choice was real. Both things can be true at the same time. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell. I have so many more truths waiting, and I am not done speaking them. This was Martha, and this is my life, told out loud, because silence was never actually safety. It was just a smaller cage. Choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.